From hijacked buildings to hijacked cars, hijacking incidents are on the rise and motorists are urged to be vigilant. Now, there are new methods that are being employed by hijackers and they're using this to distract the unsuspecting victim. So the question we're asking this morning is, how do we protect ourselves, or how do we even spot a potential perpetrator? Joining us to help us answer this question is the COO of Duma Ngcobo. A very good morning to you, Duma. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Now, when we talk about hijacking, it's something that's very personal. It's personal to me because I've been hijacked and kidnapped. And one thing that actually happens is that you're never quite ready. You're never quite prepared. But I guess we don't go through that situation in our minds. But what should we be looking forward to when we are driving? How do we as motorists become more vigilant?
Yeah, thank you for that intro. And obviously, it's something that's deeply personal to yourself. You went through the terrible ordeal. I think the first thing that you mentioned is about awareness. Most of us, when we're driving home, are oblivious to what's happening around us. We are so focused in going from home to work, from our schools, taking our children to different events and so on, that we really, the last thing we think about is that a crime, let alone a hijacking, may actually happen. So awareness is probably the first theme of what we inform our customers to think about. And when we do hijack awareness training, we emphasize the issue of awareness.
So maybe let's break this down to make it practical and to simplify it. What exactly are you supposed to be looking out for? What are the signs?
So typically speaking, even when you do something like defensive driving, the distance between the car in front of you and your own vehicle, that allows for you to either be able to exit or maneuver your vehicle should people try and block you in. So typically what criminals try and do in a hijack situation is distract you in some way and or block your vehicle in so that you can't maneuver. So this typically happens where it's a two-man team, one vehicle in front of you, one vehicle behind you. Either the vehicle in front of you will suddenly stop and people get out, or the vehicle behind you will give you a slight bump. As you become distracted, focus on the vehicle behind you, the vehicle in front obviously gets out. So just that safe following distance is the first thing. The second thing is, unfortunately, areas of leisure have become areas where us as normal people, customers or normal people driving in our everyday lives have become a target. So what that means is that people are monitoring our movements. They're monitoring the vehicle that we drive. Either it's on the list of vehicles that are sought by the criminals, or it's an opportunistic hijacking. But either way, they are monitoring us and therefore looking for individuals around us, looking in every situation to make sure that we are safe. Having said that, there is no uniquely identifiable trait of a would-be hijacker. It's not as if these individuals are wearing hoodies, terrible clothing. They look like everyday people like you and I.
So what do you do, Duma, in an incident where you're driving and they cut right in front of you? Do you try and maneuver the way through? Do you just continue driving and not stop? What do you do at that particular moment?
I think it's one of those things that's incredibly situational. So there wouldn't be a one-size-fits-all answer. So let me maybe help a little bit with a little bit more detail. Assume, for example, that you are going to be part of what we call the blue light brigade, where they mimic would-be law enforcement and try and pretend as if they, flagging you off to try and stop, and you think it's the police or any other law enforcement. Typically speaking, in that instance, we always encourage people to try and continue driving. So signal that you are aware with your hazards and so on and continue driving. But it is incredibly situational. People's reactions to different situations is not the same. So that's one scenario. The second one is if indeed you are stopped and there's a gun pointed to your head, it's very important to try and inform the criminals that you've put your hands up. If you are able to wind down the window, let them know that you are cooperating with them. And almost step by step, I'm releasing my seatbelt. I'm doing the following, because any sudden movement can, in fact, endanger your life. But again, it is situational, and each person has to assess what the situation calls for.
And Duma, what are the trends as far as hijacking is concerned? What are hijackers doing now that perhaps they weren't doing 10 years ago?
So, unfortunately, hijacking hasn't changed too much. So, in other words, we do see the situation where somebody's on their way home, they're about to stop in front of their gate, and the criminals block their car behind them. So that's still incredibly prevalent, especially in the early evenings when people are coming from work to home. That's the one. The second is where they indicate some kind of issue is wrong with your car, either by pointing out at a tire, etc. When you stop, say at the side of the highway, they then proceed to hijack you. The other one is the blue light brigade that I spoke about earlier. I have heard, but I don't have evidence of this at this stage, of even places like drive-thrus. Of our over 1 million customers, we haven't had an incident of that as yet. But obviously, we source information from our partners within the security space and or within the vehicle sales space. So we do tend to pick up where incidents of this nature occur.
And Duma, in the eventuality that, yes, your car is taken and that you are kidnapped, what are the steps that one who is kidnapped should actually take? Because ultimately, you know, a car can be replaced. It's something that's replaceable, but your life certainly cannot be. How does one conduct themselves in a situation like that to secure and preserve your own life?
I think the first thing to be said is most would-be hijackers, I'm loath to say this, but it's actually true, are professionals. So they are after gain. They are after the vehicle. Sometimes they can, ask you to hand over your bank account, your PIN, your online banking app to try and empty your accounts, send themselves e-wallets and so on. So the main thing to remember is that they are after gain. They're not likely to be after you for harm. These occasions do happen where people get injured, people get maimed as a result of a hijacking or hostage-taking scenario. But in the main, that's what they're after. And therefore, to remain as calm as you reasonably can, to cooperate as much as you can. So in other words, we don't encourage heroism to try and make an escape for it, to try and scream. Those things can end up endangering your life. But like I said, I can't presume to have put myself in such a situation. I have not been in the misfortunate position to be hijacked. But that's what we typically see of people who tend to come out unscathed.
Tracker COO Duma Ngcobo, thank you so much for some really sage and practical advice around being hijacked and kidnapped. Certainly a trigger for so many. And I do remember that when I actually did share this, so many people came out in South Africa sharing about their tragic incidents. And according to statistics, they say a car is stolen every 42 seconds in South Africa. We cannot be more careful. We cannot be more vigilant. But if there's anything to take out from that discussion is, as the COO said, that they are after gain. There's no gain from being heroic. If it's money that they want, if it's the car that they want, let them take it. But let your life be preserved.